Mm-hmm. We're gonna let this fill in as we get our bangs ready for another Friday night lecture. Looking at myself on this camera screen, I'm seeing my change. I'm seeing the effects of my fast. Just my energy overall, my self overall. Tonight we're getting into the aspects of psychological necrosis, breaking down this, getting deeper into that. Psychological necrosis. Everything that we've done up to a certain point when it comes to the healing process, going deeper into understanding the healing process for ourselves is down to the cellular level. It's down to the cellular level. Oh my God. Why did somebody put moldavite right here? I don't know why. It's down to a cellular level. Throughout my studies, throughout my work, through my own healing process, I've always heard the same narratives be used, not by our master teachers, which brought us to the door, but the key is to apply the information, to allow the challenge to happen in that information that you take in as you're going into your purpose, as you're rising into yourself. For the decades, for the many life cycles, unconsciously staying in that state of the trauma, staying in the state of the trauma, staying in the trait of the infections, which are the effects of the trauma that feed from the trauma. This is what psychological necrosis is. It doesn't allow you to create new cells and tissues based on the new DNA sequencing. When people talk about DNA activation, your DNA being activated, the process is synthesizing the new sequences of what you've healed from. You can sit here like, I'm going to use this one thing, we're going to build on this thought. If I take the thought process that they say you are what you eat, but I take another thought of I am the essence of everything. So that indeed I'm not what I eat, but what I eat, I am. This changing into your mind. What I eat, I am. Because what I'm eating is being broken down to feed the synthesizing process of my DNA at an older state. When I tell my clients, hey, I'm gonna put you on a detox regimen, a detox fast. When I put you on this detox fast, after you do this detox, after you do this fast, I want you to do, I know you're not plant-based, I know you're not vegan, but I'm going to give you this suggestion of being plant-based at least for 6 months. Take 3 to 6 months of being plant-based. The reason why I'm doing this is not to push a logic or push an ideology on you. I'm vegan and that's me. This is where I'm at. This is where I know it works for me. This is day 10 of my 20-day. I'm at the halfway point of my fast and my detox. So when you put yourself into this thought process, it's not processing. When we take things in, the natural way that our memory is set up, the way that our mind is set up in that thought process is, I need something to feed this thought. So let me go back into my memory bank. Let me go back into my mind and use old thoughts to feed this, to why I can't do it, why I won't do it. I can always fundamentally make it so I've been doing this for this long. Why do I need to change? Everything that you created was based upon a trauma. You came out based through trauma. Your mother, your father, the traumas, the issues, all this stuff that's coming back on this linear path, you came through based on trauma. So everything that you're doing is naturally going to shut down the new process. This is why it's so important to do a detox and a fast. This is why it's so important to implement these things, not in an aspect of, oh, that's what spirituality is. That's what being enlightened is. No, because I know motherfuckers that eat chicken wings, but I know a dude that eat chicken wings right now, but he intermediate fast, and that's all. He'll eat chicken wings, but a salad, and that's all he'll eat for about 3 days at a time. That's his process. I can have a build with him when we talk about we expound deep into things. So not using these aspects as, okay, if I do this, this, and this, then I'm going to get this. The mindset of getting something that's no. You're not looking based on losing and winning, getting, competing. Well, I did this and I got this. That's good. As the occultist, that's what I'm looking for anyway. The path that you chose, the things that light up for you are the things that are going to light up for you. But you have to understand there is a basis on the cellular level. That's what we're getting into tonight, that cellular level. That physical, this psychological necrosis that doesn't allow you to actually take it. You can't feed on new information. So if I'm sitting in a state, and let's take it like this, I'm in the middle, I'm in my fast right now. I'm in my fast. From my first fast to my second one to this being the third one that I've taken in a long stint of period. My first fast taught me how to survive, what I needed to purge myself of based on survival. My second fast taught me about sustaining. This fast is about me rebuilding. In the physical sense, on this plane, I've already done this process. There. I've done this process in my mind. I've done this process in the astral. I've done this process through my healing. I'm aligning my spiritual and my physical mirror so this energy now can come in full service of this space. This becomes impossible. This is almost impossible because of physical necrosis, that psychological necrosis. Necrosis is the state of cellular death. The old tissues and the old cells are dying based on external trauma and the infections. The external trauma is the cause. The things that the infections are the effects. So when you think about the aspects in your life, we're going to break all of this down. When you think about the aspects of your life, when you're going into this process of, you know what, I want to change. I want to be this and I want to do this. Whatever it may be, you want to move out of state. You want to go back to school, whatever it is, whatever your soul's wanting you to do in order for you to grow. When you go through the process, the natural cycle of the negative, because you just stated that you're going into a detox. You're going into a fast. You're going to be removing things from yourself in order to bring other things in. That's when you say, I want to go study. I want to learn. You're opening yourself up. What you're learning, is it feeding the ego or the inner child that you have not learned? Or is it feeding the soul, which is the inner child that has learned? Have you integrated all of these pieces all of the fragments of your inner child together in order to take that process to the next level. This becomes that challenging part. This becomes the challenging part because that psychological necrosis with the inner child naturally needs love. It needs the attention. It needs these things. It needs these things naturally. But since you've been born, when you came through that pipeline, your entire system was shut down. That your DNA, that strand, all of that junk that's now junk DNA has been shut down. Every time that it goes into going through this process, the natural necrosis kicks in and kills those cells. It kills any new cells. It kills any new cells and tissues because you may have that energy. You may have that power. You have that energy. You have that power. It's naturally within you. It's just that now you're resequencing your DNA to actually use it to its fullest potential. I watched the movie yesterday. No, day before yesterday. Lazarus Effect. Watch the Lazarus Effect. In the Lazarus Effect, if you've seen the show House, if you've seen the series House, towards the end of the season, they brought in chick. She had Huntington's. Her name was 13. She's in the movie. In the movie, they're trying to create a serum. They're trying to create a serum. They made it white, but it's actually dark matter. We don't get into that. They're trying to make a serum to reinstate life, reanimate the body. That's the word I was trying to use earlier. Reanimate the body. So they put in it. So they create this serum. They get the frequency right. They get the lap. They get the time. They get the lapse of the cycle of the electrodes. They need to do it right, and they bring a dog back to life. In the beginning of the movie, they do that part. Then they go home. She's laying down and she's having a dream. She's going into her Akashic records. She sees a long hallway. At the end of the hallway, there's some hands reaching from under the door, and there's a fire in there. So she's going through this traumatic event over and over and over and over in her dreams. They go through the process. They ended up getting all their shit taken away, but then they try to go back. We're going to go duplicate the experiment. I'm not going to go too deep into the movie. They try to duplicate the experiment. They go in, they try to duplicate the experiment in the lab. She's the one pulling the switch. She pulls the switch, dies. Her boyfriend tries to bring her back to life, puts the shit into her, hits her with it. She comes back to life. The serum stays in the brain. The serum stays inside of the brain. And it's a white girl. It's a white girl. So we understand the calcified pineal gland. When you're bringing yourself online and you're going from 10% of your brain at a time, that means I'm either 10% happy, 10% of this personality, or 10% of this personality, 10% this wave, 10% this, 10% this, 10%, and I'm only recording based off of the memories that are already in my mind. So I'm in that state. I'm 10% of this cycle. I'm going to use 10% of this to be angry, 10% of this based on those memories of the trauma that's in your mind. So her whole mind's active. The serum stays in the body, but the serum doesn't have a filtration. It cannot be quantified because the pineal gland is not open. That's our natural process. DMT, when we do psychedelics, going all over, but we'll come back in order. The psychedelics, when we're going through this process, our body naturally, because whether you're studying it based on astrology, whether you're looking at the Djed pillar, whether you're looking at the Kabbalah or the Quiloth is the spine, is your spine, that aspect of your spinal cord or the tree behind you. And in that heart, your chakra system is the tree of light in front of you, the one that you're putting in order, everything. That's why you chakra systems, all of that. But you put yourself into this process, her body couldn't filter it out. So now her brain's online, but her mind is online with that great amount of power, but she still has this trauma. So there's a scene when she's laying on the bed, she's laying on the couch, resting, and one of the shorties, the other people, a girl in there, she walks into the room and she's transported into her Akashic, into her mind. She's in that hallway. In the hallway, she sees the little girl. She sees her inner child. Her inner child's holding something. It ain't until the end of the movie when she finds out what's in the inner child's hand. But I said that to say this to this process. When you're coming into your power, when you're coming into your energy, the thing that the shadow work, the healing, the process of continuously doing the work, those layers that you're removing the dead tissue so it can no longer be reanimated by the old stimuli. You're removing, this is when you're checking relationships. This is when you're checking the relationships and you're checking where you used to go, why you used to go there. This is when you're asking those questions. Who am I outside of being a mother? Who am I outside of being a father? Who am I outside of being a brother? Who am I outside of being an uncle? Who am I outside of being these aspects? Because the first question, the most honest answer is you're getting to the point of saying, I do not know. You're going to get to the point of I do not know. That is the key. You do not know who you are. You are a sleeping God, laying there on the mushroom, laying on a mushroom with your pipe sitting beside you that you haven't hit in years, decades. You haven't taken in any new, you haven't taken in any in your own air, your own ability, your own self. You haven't taken it in yet. That's your process. I don't know who the fuck I am. This is going to be the process in order to help you start doing the DNA sequence. Because now that you do not know who you are, you now into the state, now you can become the observer. The observed is the one that takes in all of the information. The thought. Think about thought. The thought. The observed takes in the thought. All the information that you take in. Countless notes. Like I got notebooks from every podcast, from readings, from everything around me. That's the observed. That's the observer. Because it's always in the past tense. It's already happened. As soon as it takes it in, it's already in there. The observer. Now, the observer is the applier of this information. That's that helix. That's the other half of the DNA. The observer is the feminine aspect or the spiritual aspect or the feminine aspect. The nurturer, the guidance, the wisdom. The observed is the knower, the thinker, the logical, the reason. But if I'm only stuck on one side of my mind, if I'm only on one hemisphere of my mind, and I'm only using the 10% process, then all the information that I take in, I'm trying to synthesize something out of the logic and reason, trying to make it real. Remember, your subconscious, most subconscious is only working at half power because you're only in the thought process of trying to keep it real, trying to keep it existing, trying to keep that old thing going. So every time you get that challenge, now that you got to use this other half, you start seeing these broken, the shattered pieces inside of your DNA, inside of your brain, the brain cells that are dead, the tissues that are dead. And how do you keep activating these tissues? Psychological necrosis. One of the biggest things when it comes to when we think about psychological necrosis is how you approach into a relationship. For myself, in many of my relationships, it was from a state of, I guess it's time for me to be in a relationship. They're there, I'm there. Sure, cool. Even down to when when it came to the process of saying, okay, but I love, okay, cool. Love you too. The psychological necrosis aspect of me being inside of that space was I was disassociated with anything that was remotely into the nurturing aspect. So I naturally had to create another sub-program inside my subconscious that was fed from that aspect. So naturally, if I'm sitting in this position, I'm sitting in that status, I'm sitting in this space, of course, I have to create something to mimic only in the external, because it only exists in the external for me. Without me not doing the work, going in, I can only go as deep into something as I've went deep into myself. This is when I've broken down the aspects of when people are manipulating aspects or going into this space of manipulation of things. When you're manipulating the submission based on manipulation, this is a key transponder when it comes to psychological necrosis. Submitting based on manipulation. Manipulating the space so I can stay within the way that I am, to stay within that vision, staying in this selfless state, staying in this state of being so I don't have to change, and I bring everything into this space with me. This is how it has to go. This is how it has to be. After a while, you sit there and you thinking about time, shit start dying. Since your mind is on time, a concept of you dying, now everything that you eat becomes dead. Remember, this is the aspect of when you're eating life versus eating death. So now you think about everything that you eat is based upon death. But even if you can be a 20-year vegan, but if you ain't done the healing work, you're still basically you're only consuming to keep the necrosis from eating you alive, just to keep yourself to a certain point. Just when you talk about mineral deficiencies and energy up and down, your shit ain't right. You're always in this constant state of conflict. All of these are coming from those aspects of your mind. So now you have to make everything fit within that space. So you ain't sequencing anything. You haven't turned anything on. Even when you go through the process of DNA activation, within 6 months, of being on a plant-based diet and drinking your water and doing these other aspects, old DNA sequences turn off and new ones turn on. The old sequences are now shutting down and the new ones are coming on. It's on a cellular level. You're killing yourself on a cellular level. It's just more than just, okay, cool, I'm going to drink smoothies for the rest. I'm going to drink smoothies and drink my tea and drink my water and watch these lectures and now I'm in the zone. You haven't applied anything. The key is during this sequencing, when shit is turning off and shit is turning on, as this new sequence begins, what are you applying? As these new proteins are formed, these new isolates are formed in this new DNA strand, what are you naming it? What are you calling it? What are you deeming it? What are you deeming this? This goes into the aspect of the mindset of, think about when people go on diets. Think about when people you go on diets for an external reason. You go on a fast for an external reason. You go on these things for an external reason, simply because of some physical aspect that's already naturally going to happen. So you're not really sacrificing anything, or you're not really taking any new information. You just keep microwaving over the same old shit. So you go into the process. Why are you fasting? Why are you dieting? Because I need to lose a couple pounds for this, this, and this. I need to do this for this, this, and this. Because I need to do this. You will kill yourself. Most will kill themselves to sustain an identity that does not match that new DNA sequence. let alone even realizing that the DNA sequence has switched, but they will kill themselves in a physical sense to maintain in a certain space based on an identity of not letting go of the old them. The key of you coming into your shit is what stops a lot of people, even when you cultivate a lot of power, because you're gonna cultivate a lot of power, a lot of energy. You're gonna cycle a lot of energy. The only aspect that's stopping you is the limitation of your old self. Your old self is the furthest aspect of you. That's what you were when you came through. That no longer, think about that distance. Think about the distance even between year one to from year one to year now 35. Stuck in 27 forever. Stuck in 27 forever. I'm gonna be 27 forever. Stopped aging. Time don't exist to me. I celebrate my birthdays as deaths. Whole different mentality. You're in a whole different mentality of yourself. But think about that distance. Now imagine laying that distance out. Visualize this in your mind. This is one of the visual techniques I teach. Lay that out. Lay from year one to year you are now. Lay that out. How long would that be? All the way back there is the closest to your new self. The closest to your new self. When you start coming up after the indoctrination and everything coming to this period and point in time, traumas, everything, the infections, the super infections, all these wounds that have happened, that is the least aspect of you. It's the weakest aspect of you at the middle point. That's why the middle point can become transparent. That's why you needed those traumas to come to that point, because the middle point is the most transparent. It is the weakest point because it is the most reflective. It is the weakest point for you to be able to push through to go to the other side. The only thing that makes it seem strong in that illusionary thought process are those memories that you just keep cycling through. Everything that you're eating, everything that you're digesting, not just in this aspect of food, the sounds that you take in, the literature, the words that you take in, the relationships that you deal with. Are you really reflecting on looking at the relationships of your old self versus your new self? I went back and looked at all the relationships of my old self, and I looked at the relationships of my new self, and it's based upon these were the aptitude to keep me in a certain mindset to keep attached to me. And these relationships over here are based on based on the contingency plan that I'm here to grow, that I'm here to do some real fucking work. So it's all about growth on this side. So now when I'm looking at these aspects, I'm looking at my new sequences when I'm looking at my new DNA sequences, the things that I'm doing are going to naturally contradict all of that. It's going to contradict any of that. Even me that's sitting here right now on day 20 of a fast, on day 20, I cannot see myself, the 18, the 19, the 16, the 24-year-old me cannot see myself doing this because it's stuck within a shadow. It doesn't have the light to do it. The application process to apply must first apologize. Say I'm sorry to this aspect of myself to start initiating the DNA sequencing. Allowing myself to sit there. If anybody ever seen the movie X-Men, the joint with Wolverine when the shorty took his powers. When Shorty took his powers, took all the animating out of his body, that's the process you're going through when you're going away from your old self. When you're looking at these aspects, all of the trauma activated this process. The process is to get through the aspects of the trauma and whatever happened, those memories, and uncycling, taking yourself out of these cycles that are in your mind. You're in these deadlocks in your mentality in order for you to step forward into your full new body, programming the new body. programming the new body, programming the new mind, that new automaton to do the work for you, making your ego submit, killing your ego, killing the aspects that are feeding your ego, killing the psychological necrosis or the dead cells or apoptosis, or actually killing the cells in the tissues that were created based upon the trauma. Literally going in, like, think about when you going on a diet and they show you a diet diagram and they see the fat. Think about ketosis. We're going to use ketosis. Think about the state of ketosis. Between when you're doing an intermediate fast, your body naturally goes to a state of ketosis. My body's been in a 10-day state of ketosis. In ketosis, your body, the fat deposits, the fat cells, the fat deposits inside of your body, the old cells are now released into a system that has now fully been cleansed back to an alkaline state. Your body goes back to an alkaline state. This is when people think about cancer being the cancerous cells get locked into a cell. It's because they're being locked into a cell because they're being taken away from the acid. That's why whenever you think about somebody saying, yo, I have cancer, but you still eating acid, the acid forming foods, that's why the cancer still thrives, because it thrives in acid. Every disease and bacteria, every mental scape based on the trauma, all of these cells, the necrosis, the reason necrosis can thrive and continue killing off these old cells is because of the acidic environment. Not just simply your stomach acid, because your stomach acid is set at a certain rate. Not just at it, you're looking at this as, oh my God, yeah. You have it, think about the acidic environments that are around you. Acid is naturally exposed to destroy shit. So think about the conflict, think about the conversations that are based on conflict that become acidic. Think about the gossiping. Think about these things that become redundant in your life. Think about these redundant aspects that happen into your life. As you're now sequencing your new DNA, you're now championing and sequencing your new DNA process. Think about the things that are now happening where I just saw on Instagram motherfuckers talking about, yo, they got to do another fucking march. Why? Same old process. Because that's all their mind can, this is all their memory and their mind can connect to. So since this is all my mind and memory can connect to, I guess I got to keep doing it, because what result am I going to get? It's not based on the result that you get. It's based on you can keep doing what the fuck you keep doing. We're going to protest on Monday. We're going to sit in on Wednesday. We're going to boycott on Friday. And by next Monday, we're going to have a fish fry. What did you really do? What did the motherfucker really do? You didn't really do anything. You fed that psychological, okay, now I feel love and we feel unity and we feel peace. You're feeling something external. So now that's the infection. To your soul, everything that is within humanity is an infection. To your soul, everything in humanity is an infection. Gnostic text. Everything in the human world is an infection. It's a virus. It's a sickness. It's meant to kill shit. But if you feed a virus long enough, what happens? It adapts. You feed an infection long enough, what happens? It adapts. Chronicles of Riddick, when he was sticking himself with the venom from the shit that was in the fucking water, he became immune to the fucking toxin. So that's why when you go through the DNA resequencing and you start feeling sick, I remember my first fucking fast, I looked in the mirror, I looked fucking dead. Because everything that was the physical manifestation of that personality literally was dying at that point in time. That's why I looked like I was fucking dead. I look like most of the people that are walking through Walmart with full shopping carts look like right now. I look like you see it. You saw the ghost in the show. I saw the ghost in the show of myself. I was like, nigga, that's not really me. Who the fuck is that? Who am I? Asking these questions to yourself. Everything that you're doing you're going to be building into. Similar to when you went to school and you had those 8 subjects, the 8 fucking classes. You had your, that's the same process. You're building into it. We get comfortable in trying to get reactions based on that, based on staying in that state of killing off aspects that, yeah, what did you gain? Nothing. The next part, that part of that healing process is going to be that cellular biopsy. Everything in your life that is a reflection of a cell that is in your life, there's a reflection of a fat deposit, fatty tissues. When we think about fatty tissues, how do fatty tissues get? Because the proteins are not, it's not synthesized. There's not enough protein in it and it can't break it down. So when we think about things that happen into our lives that we can't truly, when you think about it from the emotional standpoint, the things that you cannot break down to the simplest aspect of understanding, because the emotional algorithm that you get stuck in that emotional, and you're trying to break it down through this emotional pathway, it's not meant to break down. It can't connect, it can't bond, it can't connect, it can't bond, it can't digest. So you can't digest anything past a certain point based on the trauma itself. He made it. So when you start thinking about this process for yourself, when you start thinking about the process of you going through that process of resequencing your DNA, in the depth of you resequencing your DNA, taking in that new information, taking in the new information to create the new proteins, to create the new antibodies, to fight the old aspects, to actually allow yourself to commit to the apoptosis process or controlled cell death. This is why on the cellular level, when you start killing aspects of it, when you start killing off those old cells, you start breaking down these aspects, those traumas, and you start healing the process, the old aspects outside of you, the thought forms, whether in the physical aspect, whether it be a TV show, or friendship, a job, whatever it is, it starts looking different to you because you're seeing it different. You're actually seeing it through the newer eyes. Your new self is now seeing it. Your inner child is now seeing it. Your inner child is now seeing it clearly for the first time. This goes into the aspect of when you're disciplining your inner child. You went undisciplined with your inner child for fucking years. You did what you did. You moved how you wanted to move. You ate what you wanted to eat. This is why you see people when they get in their fucking 40s and their 50s, when they get into their older ages, they want to start eating better. They want to start eating better and sleeping right. When you get to around your 30s, that's when you start trying to go do this process backwards. But you still stuck within the aspect of time. So now everything is going to run out. You're only going to do it enough to do what? You only do it enough to start the sequence, but you don't complete the sequence. The sequence has to be, once you have started the sequence, now you have to name the sequence. Name the sequence. Give the sequence its new directions. That's what it's doing. That's what your DNA is. When you synthesize it and you bring it into that sequence, you have to program it. Once you've emptied your body, how are you programming your body? This becomes the aspect that when you get a new body, you get a new mind, you get a new heart, you get everything brand fucking spanking new. When you go through the dark and come out through the other side, you get everything brand spanking new. But the key now is to program it. What do I use to program it? You have every manual inside of you right now. Every trauma, every traumatic event, every experience is a book. Every trauma is its own book. Every experience is a chapter in that book. So now you have to go through your books. Only you can read those books, Book of Eli. Only you can transcribe and use those books. As a healer, as a shaman, my only job is to direct you through using those books. I went through the death process. I'm going through a dying process right now. I'm going through the dying process right now. In order to further in sync into being the occult psychologist, to being the aspects of that, being the shaman, being in that space. I'm going through an aspect of death right now. But that body has already been programmed. When you start doing it, this is you viewing it from the no self. When you're deifying yourself. I've already created the body for all of the information that's coming down, for all of the powers that are coming online. I've had a whole clairvoyant experience this entire fucking week. Walked out the house hearing fucking voices. Old conversations, new conversations, multiple conversations all around me. When I came back, I was like, you know what? Something told me to go grab me some corn flour, the blue flour. It's the less potent flour of the blue lotus flower that we saw in Batman. And I made tea with it. And then I made another mixture of my herbs and I put it in the pipe. Hit that a couple times. And now my mind's in that space where I need to be at. My mind is in that full connection. Put the fucking multivitamin on the third eye, and I'm sitting here that's fucking going in that space. But that's all a part of the sequencing process. What are you sequencing your process with? Now that this is all every time you go through a new DNA sequence, you're actually bringing online another fractured aspect of your soul. This is when we get into soul integration, reintegrating your soul, bringing your soul back together. Then you're marking it with your sigils of yourself. My soul is put together, and I have my sigil burning on the altar right now. I have the 3 sigils that are a part of the aspects that seal my soul into the space to where it needs to be at, and it don't have to come back down here. I'm gone. So everything I do now is a projection down here into this space. But in order to do this sequencing process, you first must acknowledge these sequences that you're going to go through. This goes into the aspects of understanding where you're seeing things repeat over and over again. Every year you might repeat and do the same thing, or might be ready to do the same thing every year around the same exact time. I can guarantee that shit. I know, because I did it in regard. That's why one year when I was doing I was stuck in this mindset of physical. I'm gonna be a fucking physical therapist, or not a physical therapist, or a personal trainer. And every year I started the process of becoming a personal trainer. And every year I would stop around the same point in time. Why would I stop? Have to ask myself that question. Why the fuck did I stop wanting to do it? First time, I was thinking about money. Second time, I was thinking about how I'm gonna do this and keep this job at the same time. I was trying to think about it from 2 separate sides. One side trying to create the space for it, and the other side trying to bring it in the logic and reason instead of bringing them together. Bringing them together in that balanced thought. I can use my job as my seed for me doing this. And when I grab that information, when I grab that sequence, I created that strand. Everything about that strand my body kept rejecting this strand because I wasn't doing anything to support. Nothing inside of me was able to connect to this new foreign strand of tissue, or this foreign cell that I kept trying to put into my body or try to imprint into my mind. This is what happens when most people try to take in new information. Fundamentally, you want to use it to keep feeding the necrosis, the psychological necrosis of that psychological necrosis program. So you can keep killing shit. Yeah, man, I got this information, and now, man, I'm killing. Yeah, I debunked this, and I killed this nigga, and I killed this. And motherfuckers can't debate me because you're only feeding your ego. Your inner child likes the attention that it is getting. Your inner child is going untrained. So therefore, you love to debate. You love to have your loving, you love to go through a loving hip hop experience. You love to go through this experience. You love going through this same experience the only reason that you keep going through the same experience is because it's like you're sitting there sleeping in the little machine and you keep getting the same repeat into your mind to keep programming over and over again into those same processes in your cerebral cortex. So you keep firing off the same shit over and over and over again, year after year after year. And then you might change a picture on the wall. You might get a new TV. You might get in your 666th. You might get in your 666th relationship in the last 6 months. And then you're saying that I'm changing. I've done this. I've done this. You haven't completed the sequence. That's why you keep going back to square one. That's why you keep going back to that space, because you haven't completed the sequence. One of the biggest things when you're coming into that state of enlightenment, yeah, I'm healed, I'm loving myself, I'm good, I'm going to go. Now you start wanting to apply. It's like now that you got the tree up, now that you acknowledge your tree, now you want to decorate it. Tree ain't even big enough, it's a sapling. Your new tree of your new knowledge of your new self is a sapling. Think about the tree from the Peanuts fucking shit when they tried to put the little ornament on it and it kept falling the fuck over. It's a sapling. But you're still stuck in the old aspects of yourself to where you were able to do this and I did this and I was out here. You're having a whole senile moment because your old self is technically the senile aspect of yourself. It knows things. It repeats things. What does an old person do when you have a senile moment? You repeat things over and over and over again. You stuck on one set of things. You stuck on one sweater that you always want to wear. You're stuck on one meal, stuck on one place. You stuck on one thing over and over and over again, and you living out this whole senile moment in your whole fucking space. And you're like, why the fuck I keep reliving this whole fucking moment? Because you're still stuck in the old self. You want the old self to be the new self. They don't come together. They'll always be in conflict. The old self is meant to be learned from. The old self becomes the new shadow. Now you learn from it. And as you learn and you complete the sequence, now the newest version of yourself now becomes the old self. This is the sequencing process. So you can keep replicating the body outside of the aspect of time. See, it's going this way. But that necrosis goes this way. It goes in the opposite direction. It goes in the opposite of the cycle. Because it's going taking everything back to here. So think about your mindset when you take everything back to here. You take everything back to this space. You take everything back to here. You take everything back. I remember back in the day when this happened, because I was used to this happening. So that's why I came into the space that I'm in now. Think about how detrimental that becomes to you living in your present moment. You can't live in the present moment because you stuck on, and it sometimes it isn't even shit that was done to you. It's the infection or the shit that you did to others, or the infection that you spread. When you're going into these spaces unhealed, you're spreading an infection. You're spreading that psychological necrosis. So now you go into that space, you kill everything. You go into this space, you kill everything. You go into that space, you kill everything. So you're just going from space to space, killing everything. You're basically just sitting there being a necromancer. Yeah, we still in Chronicles of Riddick. The whole chakra story. You sitting around, you just going around killing everything, trying to make it bend to your will. Furthest out aspect of that, I forgot the name of that fucking movie with the black guy said, you guys are a virus. And the only way that a virus can understand how much of a virus it is if another bigger, stronger, more complex virus comes and it destroys it. And then it shows you what you did to us. That's your process of sequencing. you are now the stronger virus. Everything outside of you reflected based in the universe from the last conversion that happened back in July when the Betelgeuse energy came through, and then the one that's coming up now. All of these aspects, you've already done that. You're waiting for that sequence. You won't get the full impact of that sequence. This is what happens when most people were waiting on a sequence to happen, or you're waiting on an event to happen for you to make a change. The only people that are afraid of change are who? The ones that are afraid to invest into their elevation. The change is always going to be inherent. This is an inherently flawed space. So naturally, if I'm inside of a space and I'm waiting for something to happen before I do something, my expectation is always going to leave me ass out and leave me mad or leave me upset because I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting what I need. So now I have to feed this urge in another way. How do I feed the urge in another way? Let me go back to this memory of what I usually used to do. Let me act out unconsciously or consciously. Let me act out how others acted towards me when I infected them, when I bestowed the infection to them. I gave them this infection that I said was love, but it was really based on lust. It was based on, here, feed my inner child. Give my inner child goodies and all this other shit. So now you're stuck in that. Now you get stuck in this cycle and you're wondering why you reach that high and then it always tanks out. And then you in the low point and you don't know how to, you can't get out of the low point. Not knowing that the low point is going to reflect over your high point. So everything in your high point is going to be reflecting your low point. So what are you learning in that? What are you learning in that ditch? When you go to take the aspect, when you go to the crossroads, you go to a conjurer. You want to do a conjuring. You want to go talk to Baron Samni at the crossroads. Or you want to go do work in a graveyard. The first thing that you do before you go into a graveyard, as when you're doing conjuring, the first thing you got to do before you even go into the graveyard, you got to pay respect to the gates. You got to pay respect to the gates. When you go into the graveyard, when you go into the center of the graveyard, you got to pay respect to all the energy that's going to be around you in that space. You got to pay respect to them. You got to give them something to receive something. I was watching a brief Farrakhan video, and earlier this week, and he was talking about the aspects of when most people, he gave the Cain and Abel story, in the aspects of most people want to give things that can be grown outside of their body, but they're not willing to sacrifice their own body or sacrifice the actual body. This work is going to require you literally sacrificing that humanity or that human body or that wretched body that is your humanity. That is what this involves. This is why whenever you see zombie movies and you see the most decrepit scenes and what they're sacrificing to stay in their same space, they know you can do three things: eat, basics. That's what most people are going right. Most people that are in that state of physical necrosis, that's all they live for. They have three things that they live for that give them their energy. Whether the food comes into three different strains, whether now what they eat based on their mentality has to match what they eat, and then matches what they take in based on emotional aspects. All of these things come into that algorithm of you being inside of that space. So when I'm sitting inside of like I sit in my space now, and it's like I've never felt stronger. I've never felt better. I reward aspects, anything that's on a healing narrative, anything that's on a narrative of growth, I'm in there. Anything that's based on sustaining the same, all I'm doing is analyzing it. So now my analytical mind, not taking anything literal, not taking anything illogical, not trying to bring anything into reason, analyzes it. Because I'm over here in this hemisphere creating. It gives me all the room in the world to create. All my entire mind's online. So now that my mind, this is when you think about the aspect of, especially, I'll use this example right now. Like for me to continue doing this work that I'm doing, teaching, giving out this, I need to create something inside. I need to create another inceptive point, which is the services. That's why when you look up there, you see services and products, readings, shadow therapy, chakra. When I talk about shadow services, inner child healing, it's an aptitude that's within that aspect of that. That's what I use to do this. I put up my Cash App link. Lucifer signed my Cash App link. That's another aspect of feeding this so I can continuously create. So I can continue doing what I do naturally, what is naturally to me in that aspect of my inception of what I do, doing my soul's purpose. Your soul purpose. This is another thing I want to throw out. Your soul purpose, there is no plan B. And I would add to my man, to Love Alchemist, because he put up a post and I was like, yo, that resonated. And I wanted to go deeper into that aspect. There is no plan B. When you're going through the DNA sequencing, there is no plan B. When you are in your purpose, you can grow within your purpose. Your purpose, your potential is within your purpose, is within that darkness for where you create all of your DNA sequences. You're only going to go to the aptitude of stepping outside of that comfort zone. This is why if your soul, you feel in your soul that you like, you know what, that candle is going fucking bananas. If you feel in your soul like, you know what, I think it's time for me to move out of the space where I used to be comfortable at. Set the course. Your soul is going to lead you. Set the course. But your soul is going to lead you in this way. It's going to show you everything that was in that space that you created within that space and make you break away from it. It's going to make you force the separation. Because the reason that you created that space was the convenience. Everything that you could be in your space and you're like, I don't have to worry about shit coming at me in this space. I'm good in my space. I'm good here. I can go here, go here, go here. It's time to come out of that space. And this is when you're building, you have to build that space mentally first. That space has to be built mentally. That means you have to start dissecting those memories. That means this is the aspect when you get into the apoptosis of killing off those old cells and those old tissues that no longer serve a purpose. You're now targeting what you're killing. What happened to us over this long period of time is that we were in that psychological necrosis where anything that was meant to take us to the next level, we killed. So naturally, when you think about this, comes in the form of, think about the aspect when you thinking about when you listening and you talking to somebody and you're telling them something good about yourself and you're like, yeah, man, I'm about to start my business, or I'm about to start this new job, or I'm about to go to school, or I'm about to do this. You're about to do something that's going to advance you. They were created based on the old cycle. So anything that's outside of that old cycle, they can't see. This is why whenever you're doing your work, you keep it to yourself, and you keep it to yourself and you spread it to a few choice individuals that are in that space. Anytime I'm having a conversation, I'm coming from my highest aspect. When I'm having a conversation, when I'm having a breakdown, I'm speaking to the highest aspect of you. I'm speaking to your soul. I'm speaking to the highest aspect of you. Whether you know it or not, whether you came into the sequence of understanding and allowing that light to hit you, and you know it or not, I'm speaking to the highest aspect of you. I'm speaking to that inner child. I'm speaking to that creator. I'm speaking to that aspect of you. The one that is going to sound, the further down you are inside of that pit, the harder it is to hear it. So it's going to come, think about it like this. If we were in a circle and I told the person to the right of me, a secret. I told them something. And we had a circle of about 10 people around us. And they say it, and they tell this person, they tell this person, they tell this person. Not even by the third person is going to change, but by the sixth person over here in this corner, when they get the information, the third person had added something to it that's going to change that sequence to there. So by the time that information comes all the way back around to me, it's an entirely different story. It's an entirely different story. They didn't added their mom, they didn't added an uncle, they didn't added everybody's going to add their own experience to it. This is where you kick into the aspect of the observed and the observer. The observer takes in what has been observed. It starts to apply it. So when you're in your new space. You're in your new space. You've been fasting. You've been doing your detox. You clearing out your space. You clearing yourself out. You bringing yourself into this new space. Guess what's now going to come up? Almost in a cycle. Something that you need to deal with. This is how you name your sequence. Once you have now created this new sequence, now you must name it. Now you must name it. Now you're patenting it. Now you're giving it its bound. Now you're giving it its new program, and you're implementing it. How do you implement it? It comes simple as a conversation. If someone comes to me now with a conversation about problems, I'm going to be my natural self is going to be naturally psychoanalyzing them the entire time they give me the story. I'm going to allow them to speak. No response. No reaction. I'm responding by listening. I'm taking in the information. Now, after they're done speaking, now I'm going to ask the questions. What the questions that I'm asking are not to get a right or wrong answer. The questions that I'm asking is not to get a yes or no. The questions that I'm getting are not to to keep that cycle going. It's to kill that old cycle. I don't want problems. I have solutions. All right, cool. Someone can come so I'll use that 1 second. This is when you're training yourself. This is when you're training yourself as that scientist. This is when you're training yourself to actually be able to analyze without the emotional attachment or the trigger. The observer is going to be analyzing on one end, and the observed is going to be looking at it from one end of the spectrum to take in the information clearly. And the observer is going to be observing the triggers. What is this trigger in me? What does this say to me? What aspect of me is this speaking to? That's the observer taking in that information. So you're taking in this large data process, this large data file from this conversation. And now, what are you about to say next? What are you going to do next? You're always given a chance to show your discipline. You're always going to be given a chance to grow in your discipline and grow in the quality of yourself. Always. And it's going to come in conversations where you have an old conversations with people that you used to deal with, friends, family, whatever it may be. You're going to have these conversations, but now the conversation is going to sound different. Your conversation is almost going to seem if it seems argumentative, you got some more work to do. If it seems more, if it sounds, if it's still in conflict, you got some work to do. That's what this is you taking in this information like, okay, cool, I have some work to do because I got to a certain point and then the sequence broke. I was doing good and then the sequence broke. I had a moment. I had an emotional moment. I had a reaction. I was doing good. I was on the track, but then something knocked me off the track. This is when you're taking this information, you're not going to be feeling bad or you're not going to be feeling good. You're going to be feeling this sense of that accomplishment. And damn, I got some new information. What did I just learn? This is where you need to, this is where you're self-reflecting. This is how you're becoming more self-aware. You just don't become self-aware. They're saying that you're woke. They're saying that you're conscious. They're saying the affirmation has nothing to do until you're actually applying the stuff, things that you need to apply to that aspect of information. When you look at the aspect of any relationship that you were in or dealt with, how did that relationship sustain itself? Because you were trying to make it work instead of allowing it to do exactly what it needed to do. Instead of allowing that relationship to do exactly what it needed to do. And that's due to that inner child wanting the attention. Your inner child came up to the door. It's like similar to you going to a shorty house or you going to your friend house, and the first thing that happened when you go to the door, the kids are running to the front door. The dog is running to the front door. They want attention. Something inside of that space is not giving them the attention. Something inside of your space is not giving the attention. You're not giving it the attention. This is when you start seeing the reflection. You're not giving it the attention that it needs. So when you're looking at your kids and you're wondering why your kids is running around, and because they need attention, they're showing you that, yo, you need to give some attention to yourself. You need to start doing this aspect to yourself. They feel that because they the freshest out the fucking pipeline. Chicken tacos. Chicken. The unconscious aspect, another word for the unconscious aspect of psycho necrosis is necroptosis. It's the opposite of acroptosis. It's the opposite. That's that neurological state. So I'm looking into my mind, and I thought about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I thought about going back to March. I was actually streaming back to March. I thought about March. I thought about why this March was different for me than any. It was different, but it was the same. I looked at the pattern of March for myself. For the last 2 years before this point of coming to this full spectrum, March for the last 2 years prior to this year was March Madness for me. This was something that me and my brother coined at the restaurant when we were working at the restaurant, when it was the busiest time of the year for Lobster Fest for Red Lobster. It was March Madness for us. That's when we put in the most amount of work, we got the most amount of hours, and we got the most amount of money. And then, so I'm thinking about like, yo, I repeat, until I remember I got to a point in time, the first year, I'm killing it. The second year, this is when I wanted to start doing personal training. But I was more into my spiritual aspects. And I had a reflection. My brother was getting tired. So certain shifts, like my brother would get tired. I'm like, oh shit, bro, ride off me. Ride off. Yo, use my energy for right now. Gave him my energy, gave him one of my energy packs. So I'm in that space. So I look at this year and I'm like, what's different between last year and this year? Oh, those 2 times. It was still March Madness for me because I still coined that sequence. But now it was time for me to reconfigure that sequence. The things that went well in aptitude, the things that you were in your truth and you were in your zone, it's time to resequence those events. You're resequencing everything line by line. You're going through this chart line by line. And now you're going to be resequencing all of these events. This is the healing process. Resequencing the old DNA and targeting what needs to be killed in order for you to move forward. You don't want none of I don't want none of the old waste. Think about it. If you go right now to go use the bathroom, you go take a shit, do you want any of the stuff that's sitting there in the toilet, do you want it back in your system? Everything that could have been used out of it has been taken out of it, and the stuff that couldn't be broke down is now stored into your body. That's the infection. That's the toxicosis. Most of us keep going around in this aspect of gossip and constantly going around in these toxic environments. That's the toxicosis. Your ass is literally going into shit and then wondering why you keep getting sick. You're wondering why your energy is always getting fucking fucked with. And then you're looking for another external reason. Nah, it can't be because of where I'm going and what I'm doing. It can't be because of me. It got to be because of something else. And then this one motherfuckers that use energy vampires. Yes, they do exist. But you are the nest. You are the nest. That's why do you think they can come to you so freely? This free radical energy, these free radicals can keep coming to you so easily. Because there's something within you that you have not dealt with. You have not, nigga, I didn't think of, because you keep going back into these old spaces. And when you go into these old spaces, you don't set new standards for yourself. You're not living based on your standard. You're not living within your truth. The new truth that you found for you. You ain't using it yet. It would do me no good to sit here every single day and do what I do, but not live inside of my truth. Because now this is when you start seeing certain individuals, they need a constant stream to keep killing off cells so they keep replicating the same shit. So after a while, the information becomes redundant because they keep doing the same thing. You keep going into those spaces, saying this, you keep speaking to reflections and projections. A projection is only going to do what you give it. It's only going to be based on what you programmed into yourself. So you keep going into these projections, wanting it to be something different. We need to stand up and mark. No. I just want this to work. You're not going through the process. You're not allowing it to do what it needs to do. So you can't become the observer and the observed. So now you get stuck in this. Cycle of feeding the negative and you're feeding the negative in order for you to get some of the positive. You're continuously killing off you're continuously killing off the cells and the antibodies that are meant to help you shift and help you heal, but you keep killing them off by feeding the negative acid. Because you're not observing how that acid even came into being. This acidic effect. You're not looking at a relationship where there's always been this sense of jealousy or envy to you. No one around me is envious. And if they are, they're where they're at. No one around me is envious. No one around me demonstrates jealousy. Because when they do show anything to an aptitude with me, my natural shit is to be able to, I can now break I now know how to break the sequence. I understand my Aquarius mindset of disassociating and detaching, of staying detached. That's me breaking the sequence. The thing that made it so I couldn't use it to its fullest potential was I didn't understand what the fuck I was disassociating from or why I needed to disassociate. I didn't take that moment in time to be like, let me observe in my moment of detachment, what am I doing? Most of the times in my moment of detachment, unconsciously, and this is the crazy part, you're doing this shit consciously, unconsciously, now you're just bringing it into the conscious light. So for me, whenever something would happen, I naturally separate away from it, and then I look at how it can reflect in my everyday based on somehow I might have a taste for something, or what show I want to watch, or a TV show, or something I want to read, or something that I go to. I take that and I transmute it to create a new sequence. As you start doing this, living in your truth, trusting your process, you're going to look funny as fuck to motherfuckers. Oh, you acting real funny ever since you got your hair done. Oh, you looking real funny ever since you started growing a beard. You looking real funny ever since you went vegan. My new antibodies are fighting against anything that's going to stop. My new antibodies and my new system is not going to allow anything to kill these new cells that I'm creating. I'm creating a whole new blockchain over here. Cryptocurrency. I'm creating a whole new blockchain over here. I'm not, that over there cannot, it doesn't feed this. That aptitude, I don't feed that way. I've never fed that way. Some of the things that I used to notice for myself that I was doing unconsciously when I would go into a state of disassociation from individuals is because I don't feed that way. They eat a certain way. They talk a certain way. They move a certain way. They digest things a certain way. My body doesn't digest in that manner. My body doesn't digest information in that manner. My mind naturally takes in everything in an unbiased state from both sides of the coin, naturally. So you can't tell me a story because what is hidden for me, this is your spiritual aptitude or your abilities coming online. What you are keeping in the dark, what you keep into the darkness, naturally is going to come up. But there's a difference between when you're trained and when you've trained yourself and you've healed yourself and you're still you're in an unhealed aspect. Because when you're in an unhealed aspect and your shit start coming online, I didn't want that to end. No. And then we hit the OK's button. All right, cool. All right, yeah. But it's based on the untrained and the trained aspect. So the trigger is what you need to understand that aspect. So when you see this is when you start understanding repetition and things that keep repeating themselves. It's teaching you how to use your intuition in a way that's intuition is not based on emotion. Intuition is not based in your emotion. It's not based on imbalanced emotion. I remember thinking I was being very intuitive into a thought process. And this is when motherfuckers, you think about it, because when you going into the higher aspects, most motherfuckers are in the lower aspects of the ethers of the energy of other shit that's trapped up there anyway. So let's say you went through a trauma, somebody was unavenged, they up there in that space. Where do you think you're going to get your information from? They don't have a body anymore. What body do you think they will use? Body snatchers. They're going to use your ancestors' body. They're going to guide you through your ancestors' body. They'll come through into your ancestors' body and use them to talk to you. And they'll give you some information. But going untrained, since I'm not asking questions to myself, that means I'm not asking questions to my higher self. I'm not asking the questions to my higher self because I'm not asking the questions to myself in this present, living in this present moment. So you learn. So as you learn to start working with your energy, you learn to ask these questions that only your energy is going to know. Only the truest version of yourself is going to know. And when you're going based on intuition in a healed sense, it's going to resonate and give you the vibration that's going to uplift you. It's going to give you the truth that you need in order for you to move forward. It's not going to feed your ego. It's not going to feed the inner child Cheetos. It's going to feed the inner child a banana. It's going to feed the inner child a banana, a smoothie. It's going to feed it something that's going to help it flourish. It's not going to feed something that's going to keep the process of your cycle. You just keep dying in. Every time you get to that point, every time you get to the vibrations peak, you got a decision to make. Every time you reach the vibrations peak, either you're going to jump and learn how to fly, or you're going to go back down the mountain. Which side? Which one are you going to do? You're either going to hide from the jump, or you're going to take the jump. That's based on what the fuck you know. The bridge that you're going to build, the wings that are going to spread is the new information that you've taken in and you've applied. The new DNA sequence that you've activated. That's your light body activation. Everybody has this humanistic approach to what it's going to do. Yeah, we going to fly, we going to go around, we going to start. I ain't thinking about not nan fucking white person. I'm not thinking about nobody. I'm not thinking about getting back at nobody. I'm not thinking about being vengeful. I don't care. Truly don't give a fuck. If anything, you come into the realm with that thought process, it's going to be, oh, you want to go against Papa Lucifer in a battle. Okay, cool. This is what I can do. I don't even have to use any of the magics that I'm supplied with. I can just use the mind, because I know where your mind is at. That's all I'm using down here is my mind. When it comes to dealing with day-to-day shit, I'm using my fucking mind. The mental aptitude that I've been gifted with, and bringing that online. That's all I'm using down here. So it doesn't get attached. Why would I bring my energy down to it? This is when you're having these conversations with yourself, you're doing it from the highest aptitude of your mindset. I'm only speaking to your soul. I'm only speaking to the higher aspects of you. Everything that gets triggered while we are having a session, when I'm talking to a client, everything that gets triggered in that session, that's the shit that is noteworthy. I'm writing down the triggers. I'm writing down what you're not saying. I'm writing down what you're not saying. I'm writing down what your body. I'm writing down what you're not saying physically, what you're not saying with your mouth. I'm writing down what you're not saying with your eyes. I'm writing down what your body language is not saying. The observed is taking in everything that you're saying, everything that your body's doing, every twitch, everything that your body's doing. But my observer is it's extracting the shit from your soul. It's extracting the shit from your spirit. That's the process. I've created that process and that sequence. That shit happens just sitting in a space. The aptitudes outside of you become the physical things that you use. Once you start moving in this manner, everything becomes an extension of that. My wand is an extension of my energy. I extend my energy through this. I don't need this. This is a training apparatus. So I put this is a training apparatus until I put it into my subconscious mind. Until I've completed the sequence and I've removed the old targeted cell tissue and the DNA and the old sequences in my mind, so I can implant this into my mind so it can now rest and grow. So whenever I'm using cards, I don't need the cards. Sit there and read a whole fucking person up and down. The card is for the ability for me to illustrate what I'm reading. This is you living in no self. When you have now put yourself into that ability that I'm now, everything that comes out into this body, everything that comes out into anything that I do is coming from the aspect of me observing it first. That's why it can come out so clean. That's why it comes out so seamless. And sometimes it's incoherent, because that's pure spirit. That's pure spirit allowing me to be able to do that flow. When you're in that space, that's your pure spirit allowing you to actually be able to flow. There's no blockage. There's no stoppage. time don't exist in that. This is when you're breaking down the aspect of time doesn't exist. This is when you're breaking down the aspect that time doesn't exist. This is when you're breaking down the aspect of the old conduits of how my mind used to stay within that space. Man, I used to stay this way, and I used to be so sad, and people used to do this to me. All of that shit that shit doesn't fucking matter to you anymore, because now you have a choice. You've always had the choice. My favorite analogy that I always use: if you go into your house and your shorty's in there with your best friend, or you go into your house and your man's in there with your homegirl, you got one or two fucking choices. Either you're going to join in and coach, or you're going to leave. You have one of two choices. The emotional aspect or the inner child naturally is going to throw the tantrum. They're the one that's going to be mad and upset at what the fuck they're finding out, what they're seeing, because they only reacting based on what has been seen. There's no deeper if you step away from it, you can sit back and decipher and look at the whole thing and be like, I see how this happened. Or you can go this other way and you can join in. After you join in, you're gonna get the information. Now what you gonna do now? You joined in, that means you okayed it. You joined in, you okayed it. You throw the tantrum, you okayed it. Because in order for that cycle to be complete, something has to be removed. Either you're removing yourself, or one of them they're gonna remove you. This is that cycle that you have to break. This is when you're breaking these cycles in your patterns. When you're looking at a repetitious pattern, you're looking at these cycles that you keep going through in your life. Why do I keep going through this? The same time every year I go through this. What am I not seeing? How am I seeing this? Which one of me is seeing this? Is it the broken mother that's in me? Is it the broken father, the broken sister, the broken brother? Is it a broken relative that is seeing this aspect in me? Or is it truly me seeing this aspect within me? What part of me is seeing this so I can complete this cycle? Until you do this, you're gonna keep repeating the damn cycles. There's motherfuckers in time loops right the fuck now, down to their physical aptitudes of how they dress, how they act, how they move. Stuck within the aspect of being, they came in, you can come in trying to make, then this goes to the aspect of making relationships work versus letting them work the way they are intended to. The relationship, anything that you're doing is going to be based, everything down here is for you to learn from. It's a training ground. Once you see this is why when I tell people, once you see that shit, you're like, I really have no reason to be mad. I really have no reason to be upset. I really have no reason to really feel anything. Because I have a choice. It's like either I'm going to entertain it or not. What's my decision based on that? Anything else is emotional aptitude that has been created within that space of feeding those dead ass cells. It started off dead. You went into it based under a false pretense. You went into that space under a false assumption. You went in it one way, and then you expected to stay that way. And then when that got challenged, you sat there like, nah, I don't like this. What don't you like about it? Explain your feelings. Don't give this. Stop giving yourself, do yourself a favor and stop giving yourself this aptitude of, I feel this, this, and this. Why? Give yourself the whys. Give yourself the whys. What is it linked to? Not based on external, but on internal. What is it connected to? What is it linked to? Inside of you. That's what you have to ask yourself. That's the questions you have to ask yourself. Be totally fucking honest with yourself. Because until then, you're only going to be replicating broken DNA strands and doing the same broken shit that you did last year. No vision, no drive. You can't accept the challenges. You allowed your mental aptitude to go to a certain level. Now you have to expand past that, and that scares the shit out of you. These are those aspects that you're doing when you're going through this new DNA sequence. I'm not waiting for December 21st. I've been doing the work ever since November 13th. I'm already killing off those cells. There's a bunch of dead cells inside of my body right now at this moment that are being cleansed out through the fast. That's the aptitude of me doing a fucking fast. Day by day, step by step, day by day. Taking myself through the process, allowing myself to trust the process. Yeah, it hurt a little bit. Head hurt, headaches. Because my body is now trying to, that natural state of fighting between necrosis and me committing to apoptosis and taking control and becoming disciplined in my work. Me building the space, you building the space that matches the new aptitudes of the work that you're doing as you're moving in your truth, as you're walking in your truth, as you're talking in your truth, as you're bringing yourself into this new space. This is what you must do. It's not a race. It's not a race. It's when you look at it based on, I'm constantly racing to get to something before something else. And it's constant state of competition that a lot of us put ourselves in. You'll put yourself into a competition based on the urge. So I'm only going to do this based on the urge. I have an urge that I'm trying to suppress. Since I've not learned how to work with that urge, or I've not learned how to discipline myself within the urges that I'm feeling, I'm going to feed it the only way that my inner child knows how. Through the broken elements. Through those aspects of those traumas. Through these events that I've been through. And this is how I dealt with it the first time. I'm going to hold my breath until I turn fucking blue. I'm going to hold my breath until I turn blue. I'm going to do this until this happens. Then what if it doesn't happen? Then what are you doing next? Putting yourself in that aptitude to continuously be in this space of being hurt. That needed alone time. That you need the alone time. You need that time to yourself so you can actually start the sequencing process. This genes, your new genetic code, your new body is not gonna work in the aptitude of trying to stay connected for a fear of being alone. I love being in the aspect of being alone because I unify myself in the space of being alone. Married to me. The matrimony to me. My masculine and my feminine aspects have been healed. The application process to go get that certificate. And now we walk down the fucking altar. We walk down the altar. We walk down to the altar through the Akashic records into my vast atrium of my tree of life that's in my visual, that's in my minds when I go into that space. My beautiful, vast visual of my tree that I go into. And I can now sit under and I can just enjoy the time of being asleep in Shiva to myself. Creating and doing everything that I need to do. That's the process of you healing yourself. But it's stages to get to that. We have to stop looking at it based on, well, I did this, and this last week. Where's the result? Our minds have been put into that necrosis to where cell death happens fast as fuck. Shit can die fast as fuck. Soon as it's created. Because when we look at cellular death, when we look at the aptitude of cellular death, the next one, when we start doing the deeper class build, the class builds are built on Zoom where I can share screens and shit. When we go into this deeper aptitude of death, of that cellular death, we're looking at how it died. This is why the Kemites study death all the fucking time, because they were looking at how something died. They wanted to understand death in that on the metaphysical, on the cellular, on the microcosm, on the macrocosm, microcosm, all the way down to that motherfucking level, down to what it is. Understanding death and what it is simply more than just saying death is a transition. Death is the next phase. I study death. I study death. I am death. Bear insomnia is the archetype of the energy that is of me. That crossroads, that is me. That underworld energy, that Osirian energy, that Anubis energy, that is the energy that is me. I study death because I understand death is more than just that blanketed word of the transition. What is death? Give me the definition. Hold up, wait, I don't want to go outside for it. Let me go get it for myself. And that's what this is, me bringing that to that space. This is what I found. This is what I found. The cellular process, the tissues, the infection. Now we're going to get into this aspect of the super infections. A regular infection dies by the regular antibiotics or the regular antibodies that are naturally within the old self. So naturally, when you're in the trauma state, those infections, the ones that get past those antibodies, naturally now advance. They now become adapted. Anything that's like you put the venom in your system, you adapt. So when you're now going through the process of reversing this engineering process, reverse energy engineering, going into this process of reverse energy engineering, now you have to look at these aspects that are in the physical manifestation, from how your body feels when you feel tired. Why do you feel tired? When you are hungry, why are you hungry? Remember, you're questioning everything. Why am I hungry at this time and not this time? It's not the simple answer of, well, I used to eat all the time after I left the club and I left here. So now I'm not going to the club. So now I'm not hungry. Or I'm not drinking this, or I'm not doing this, so I'm not hungry. This is when you think about somebody that's going through an addiction. In the moment when they're going off the addiction, they love fucking sugar. It's because your body took that external source of sugar in order to give it a function. Now that you remove this sugar or these glycerin aspects coming into your body, now you need something else to feed it. The inner child needs sugar. It's hyper. It needs that hyperactive activity. This is when you start replacing one addiction of something for another aspect. You take it from here. I don't want to do that one no more. I'm going to take this one. Or I'm not going to take this one. I'm going to use this one. Or I'm going to do this. And then you create these are the super infections. They are adapted to that climate of the acidic self. They're adapted to that climate of the acid. Think about a conversation that you have with somebody when every day of the week, every other day of the week, y'all sit there and discuss problems. It's an acidic environment. That's why they're able to adapt, because now you just keep bringing in the new sequences of the new acidic problem or the new acidic thought. You bring in the new sequence, it finishes that cycle. Now you locked within that cycle. This is why when most individuals start coming out of their cycles, and then you start hearing what has become redundant in conversation, something's not thrilling you no more. You're just like, I'm tired of that conversation. We have that conversation every week. You give the piece. You say what you're not doing. Sometimes what you're not doing on your end, this is based on internal work for ourselves. Are you really saying what needs to be said? Are you really setting the parameters and the boundaries that need to be set? Are you really injecting the new serum or the new antibodies or the those new chemical agents into that space so it no longer can thrive, to watch it kill itself. I've watched many people kill themselves. Unconsciously, I watched many people that kill themselves in conversations, in whatever they say, going throughout those traces inside of my mind and those memories. The key is to find that repetition of that memory and isolate it. Now I brought it into isolation. Now I have this isolated thought in front of me. Let me look at this part of this sequence. What's feeding this sequence? What proteins are feeding this sequence? What aspects of my life are keep feeding the same sequence for it to keep reacting? From how you take your breath. Most of us don't even take deep. You can't even get into breath therapy because the only time you take deep gasps of air is when you're excited about something or you're upset about something. Your meditations don't last long past a certain point. Your breathing exercises don't last past a certain point because it's naturally supposed to be resetting your breathing pattern of your natural breathing pattern anyway. That's why you go through the mantras of the and you go through these mantras because you're reprogramming your breathing pattern. This is you reprogramming the body. This is you going through the process of reprogramming the body. How you breathe, how you see, how you speak, how you eat, how you move, how you navigate the new body, as opposed to how you navigated your old body. You navigated your old body on Red Bull, Monster, Camel Crush cigarettes, and fucking honey buns. This new body can't function off of Red Bulls, Camel Crush cigarettes, and honey buns. This new body need more. This new body need more. That's the needing and the wanting aspect. Your inner child is needing and wanting. What are you giving it? This becomes the pickiness phase. When your inner child goes through the pickiness phase, I don't want that, I don't want this, I don't want that. But now that you're going through the healing process, it's like, why don't I want that? And why did I want that instead of this? One of the biggest things that happened to me when I switched to plant-based is my functions of taste, my taste buds changed. My taste buds changed. Like, I remember the last time, this was like a year ago. A year ago, I went to my mother's house. No, 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, I was at my mother's house and she made tacos. I love tacos. I don't think nobody on the planet don't like tacos. She made tacos. I was in the middle of my vegetarian aspect and I was like, all right, cool. I went without red meat for so long, I didn't even remember the taste or the smell. So my mom made tacos. I was like, it smelled weird. I was like, all right, time to do a test. Grab the taco, stick some cheese in that motherfucker, put some taco sauce, seasoning on top of it. I tried to bite it, and the taste of it was wretched to my entire being. I was like, the fuck did I just eat? Now in my mind, the memory was like, nigga, I love tacos. In my mind, I was like, I love tacos. So why don't I like what I thought I did? It wasn't what you ate and what you thought that you loved. It was the aspect of the memory that was attached to. So now that I found that sequence, I isolated it. When my mother made tacos, it was usually on a Thursday. It was right before pizza day. It was right before we had pizza on Friday. We either ate pizza or tacos every other couple Fridays. So on Thursdays, from the TV shows that I watched, to the music I was listening to what I was doing in school, all of these aspects came up. That's unlocking the sequence. That's unlocking that sequence. This is when you're really getting deep into yourself. Like, why did I think I love this at this space? Why do I like this the way that I thought that I liked it? Why do I not interface with this? That's unlocking the sequence, the senses, your sensories, smell, taste, sight, touch, smell, feel, taste. You're unlocking aspects of the sequence. That's the sequencing. The sequences is the senses. Using your senses to be able to see it outside of the emotion. See, your emotional aspect, you create a feeling or the emotion based off the senses that you felt in that space. So now your senses you're not using, because now you're just repeating that cycle. Why was I doing this in the first place? That's what you're asking yourself. Unlocking the new sequencing, the resequence of the DNA. Now I can go into the space. Now I still rock with fucking tacos. But now, since I've expanded my mind into being plant-based, I can make tacos over 777 different ways. 777 different recipes for fucking tacos are in my mind. In the creation process, I can take some potatoes. I can roast some potatoes with some garlic on them, and roast some garlic and some potatoes. Take a soft taco shell, roll it up in there with some tomatillo sauce over the top and some vegan cheese. Boom! I made a taco. That's my definition of a taco. That's my sequence of that taco. Someone else can come into the space, nigga. That's not a taco. There's a taco. There's a shell. There's filling. There's cheese. It has everything that a taco would have. It just doesn't have the meat. This is you setting your new practice. This is you now naming that sequence. This is how I move. How I move is not for someone else to move. It should never be based on the way I move. Should never make the basis of how somebody else moves. How I take in information is not going to be on the basis of how someone else takes in information, because now it's going to jade the perspective or the ability to grow. My way, the way that I have been functioning, set up to think, is based on cycles and cycles and life cycles and life cycles and life cycles of going through the process of the program. So the way that I think, the way that I move, the aptitude of how I am is just different. It's not something that can be externally changed. The internal core of myself and my being to that is everything. As I'm acknowledging, as I'm moving through spaces, is it matches and I can mesh and I can adapt to any space. This gives you the ability to adapt. This gives you the ability to monitor your energy. Adapting is being able to monitor your energy. Adapting is being able to go into a space without absorbing external trash and being able to observe the most important aspect, the most highest aspect of the energy within that space. Use it for an example. If I go to the gym, hop on the treadmill. They got the social distancing in there. Brother hop on this treadmill. Another guy hop on this treadmill. Shorty hop on the treadmill in front of us. Hop on the stair climber in front of us. She got on her tights. They spending more time looking at her in those tights. Meanwhile, I started my process. I run on the treadmill with my eyes closed anyway. Music in, binaural beat playing as I'm running. I'm programming my day. If the spirit says, open your eyes real quick, look at these dudes. Look at these niggas being niggas. And I look over and I look at them. Guess what I'm able to do? Instead of me absorbing and becoming judgmental, this is a process for yourself. Instead of absorbing and becoming judgmental, I'm looking at them and like, I now synthesize it and pull that energy from them, because that's a natural. Her in front of me anyway is already, she's receptive and absorbing that energy. How can I pull this energy back? How can I triangulate and bring this energy back to me? So I'm not becoming dampened or lowering myself down in the space. I'm taking myself to the highest aptitude in every space that I'm in. So then, motherfucker, I walk by and I go grab the bottle and I spray down the treadmill. I wipe down the treadmill, and they say, "Yo, man, did you see Shorty Yams?" and da 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 da. But like, my eyes was closed the entire time. How were your eyes closed the entire time? Because I was doing a meditation on the treadmill. always going to give you the highest aptitude of information. Leave them in stun, I'm going to go walk off. Because it can't attach. That's on an impersonal aspect. When you go into a personal aspect and you go into a space, indirect, like someone comes directly to you and says something to you, and they give you a response. You got one or two choices. Either you're going to respond by feeding that space, or you're going to disassociate yourself away from it. Hit the eject button. Why does that not resonate with me? Why does that cycle keep? This is when you start looking, taking that cycle out, taking that synthesis out. Why, based on my sense of smell, my sense of taste, whatever senses were used to create this sequence, why did this aptitude first get to me? Most aptitudes that have gotten to me most of the time, if it's not based on smell or on taste, it's based on feel, based on my energy, being an empath, my sight, based on what I saw at first, and then my ability to what I've heard. So at a point in time for myself, before I took the next dip into that dark, beautiful dark matter, my neuromelanin took my neuromelanin to the next level in charging it. Think about carnage, think about venom, think about a symbiote. And I reactivated that aspect of myself. Now I'm like, ooh, shit, I reactivated it. What can I use it for now? Everything that you're doing is not going to be based upon this synthesis of trying to keep shit the same. You want to become venom. You want to become carnage. You want to become spawn. When you look at these aptitudes of these characters, the only thing that kept them stuck was they all were big. All of them got their powers based upon a trauma. Spider-Man got his shit based upon a trauma. Batman got his purpose based upon a trauma. You're going to get the purpose based upon the trauma. Your key is to unlock the sequence of the trauma, the energy that's locked within the trauma, to actually take yourself to the full spectrum of your being. So you don't have a need or a want for an external purpose. You become your purpose. That's why your purpose, your soul purpose, your true purpose, it don't have a plan B. This is why your true purpose don't have a plan B. Because your true soul purpose, you're able to build in it with their ultimate potential of becoming limitless. I'm limitless. I'm thankful for being limitless. I'm thankful for being limitless. I'm thankful for being a creator. I'm thankful for being in the aspects of healing. I'm thankful for being able to be everything that I'm into that aptitude. Thankful, being fully thankful, being fully grateful, being fully humble is outside of the spectrum of being needing or wanting something. I'm able to accept everything at every point as a learning aspect, and I'm grateful for the process. That's you trusting the process. That everything that comes up in that space, you're able to sit in there, let me learn from this. I'm thankful for becoming the day. I'm thankful for learning something in this day, something that helped me impact my growth, for me to go forward, to invest into my elevation and my evolution. Not staying attached to things of 3, 4, 5 years ago, 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago. I'm still attached to this thing. I'm still attached to this because it's part of my purpose. Is it helping you grow, or is it stifling you? Ask yourself the fucking questions. Is it helping you grow, or is it stifling you? Everything that helps me grow, when I wake up the next day, I feel renewed because I have a whole new set of things I get to play with. When you're stuck in that cycle of things that are hindering you, you wake up to the same process over and over and over again. You wake up to the same old process. I woke up, I used the bathroom, I turned on the TV, I looked at my Facebook, I looked at my IG, I went into one of the groups that I'm in, got some information. Now that's going to be me for the day. You walk around just like this. living in the psychosis of fucking cellular death, because you're not doing anything to target killing those cells, understand why you're killing those cells, and setting yourself up. This becomes this is that process. Everything outside of you in the external matter, it don't even fucking matter, because you have to start looking into yourself. Most people look at the external state of being to find answer for logic and reason to stay within that space, just so they can continuously say what they've been saying over and over and over to themselves. This is why I don't do this. This is why I don't do that. This is why I stopped doing this. This is why I started doing that. This is why creating more cycles for yourself, locking yourself down into more fucking cycles that ain't really working for you. That way, every time the repeat come around, that train come back around, when it's time for you, you have that spark or that idea, you can't build on it because you haven't learned the old sequences. Learn the sequence. As you learn the sequence, then you shall grow. But you have to learn that you have to understand the aptitudes of these sequences, the relationships of these bodies of work, these relationships of these astral, the relationships of these conduits in your physical nature, in your physical narrative, and what they mean, what they represent. What part of you, okay, think it like this. Define yourself. I define myself as a big brother. Okay, cool. In order to kill that sequence of me being a big brother, was the reason why I held so tightly to it was when I saw my little sisters having kids, when I saw my brother in his relationship and it was horrible and shit, and the shit he was going through, I took it on my chin I took myself as being responsible, because maybe I wasn't the best big brother. But I had to stop that emotional reaction. I was like, wait, let me remember the conversations that I had with them and the conversations that I tried to have with them. Let me unlock this sequence. Let me look at this real quick. Like, well, the reason I said that and the reason I did this and the reason we acted this way, and I was the brother that they needed and wanted at that time. But I wasn't the brother that can make an impact. In order for me to become the brother that made the impact, I had to understand becoming my own brother, becoming your own sequence of becoming my own brother, going through this sequencing process of healing that child, doing that inner child work of healing little bitty old me that was stuck in being 12 years old, little old bitty me that was stuck in being 16, 18, being stuck in these ages. That's the work that I had to do. That was the little brother that I had to go deal with. That's why I had the longing and the walling of trying to be the best sibling, being the example to my siblings in that space, because I had a longing, and you have a longing and a needing for what you need to do for yourself. And this is when you go through the cycles of relationships, when you damn near with somebody that's like your brother, or someone that's like your sister, or someone that's like your mother, or someone that's like your father that you didn't have or did have. And then you start implementing that program, those memories come up to the surface of who was the first man in your life. 1 second. As I grab a bottle of water and use the bathroom. Oh my God. And we pretend. All right, cool. But yeah, so when we think about DNA activation, just like anything, you got to start at the basics. People think about their DNA activation like, yo, I'm going to get my powers. I'm going to become clairvoyant. I'm going to become more intuitive. You're going to become all of those things. Not saying that it's not going to happen. The key to nurturing these talents is always going to lead back to your shadow work. That's what I do for a living, is you working on your shadow work, doing your shadow work. That's going to be the process that you need to fucking do in order to activate that DNA, to start to create the new sequence. To create the new sequence, you have to go through these aspects for yourself. Like looking back at what I was saying about my being the big brother, being the best big brother. At that point, I had to understand that I was the big brother that was wanted and needed within that space based on what was being dealt with inside of that space. Now that you're outside of that space, you've acknowledged the trauma. You're doing the deep down dirty work of working on your trauma. This is when your cellular structure starts to change. Your body starts to change. Your energy starts to match the body that's changing. Your mind starts to match the energy of the body that's changing. The whole psychological pattern changes. Everything is now shifting. Those memories are now coming to the forefront for you to actually start dealing with those. Those are the triggers. Those are the psychological triggers. Those are the things that are coming to the forefront for you to deal with. So now you're in this process. All right, cool. What's next? After you realize that after you start working on your little brother, your little sister, your little inner child aspect of yourself, now that you've done the brother aspect or the sister aspect, now it's time to do the mother aspect or the father aspect, whichever order. But it starts with the inner child aspect. It starts with the inner child. It starts with becoming the brother and the sister of the inner child. What does an older brother and an older sister naturally do? Protect their little brother and sister, give them hell, make them stronger based on where you're at. And then when you get into that mothering aspect, the nurturing, the mother is actually the nurturer. So all of the information that you cultivated and apologizing to your inner child saying, I'm sorry for what we did not know. I'm sorry for what we did not know. I have the whole thing. I'm sorry for what we did not know. You are acting and moving based off feelings and emotions based on the information that you had at this point in time. I allow me to now take over. That allowing yourself to take over, that is you becoming the mother. That's you becoming either the mother or i.e. the father. It's going to be a cross. Remember, everything is crossing into sequencing. So if your inner child work starts, and I'm not giving out too much of this because this is what I do. The inner child is going to start in a process where we start with your inner child and then crossing it into, okay, cool. The wounded feminine aspect, if you are of the feminine, the wounded feminine aspect, this is going to be nurtured by the brother aspect, the knowledge of the brother, the healing aspect. The masculine, the brother, is going to be brought into the aspects of the sister, the partnering of the sistering aspect of what we're going to do the work in. After we've completed these two cycles, the brother and sister are now become one. They become the mother or they become the father, whichever aptitude that we're working through as we're going through your DNA resequencing process in your shadow work, in your therapy. This is the depth. This is going deeper into the aspect of the inner child therapy of why when we're building your session. As you're going through this process, you're going to naturally see in physical form shit start to change. So now I'll use it for an example. If I was to see one of my sisters right now that I haven't seen in fucking like years, other than if I see my niece and see my nieces and nephews, if I look at one of them, I wouldn't even notice them. I could see them. I can see them, know their name, know stuff about them to that aptitude, but my body, my mind, my cellular structure can't relate to them. Your cellular structure will not relate to them anymore because their cellular structure was created based upon the trauma. Your new cellular structure is based upon being healed. So now that you're in this healed space, that doesn't look familiar to you. That's no longer family. That is an associate. That is a relative based upon the works. The way that they become familiar to you is if they do the work. That's not on you. You must honor if people decide to stay within a toxic narrative. You must honor that. Honor them into that space. Honor them and give them the respect. Accept it. But the worst thing that you can do is keep trying to go into that space and be like, sit with me for a little bit. Stop sitting with them. Until you have created the full example of your body, you cannot do anything for anybody else. Until you have created enough of the example and enough sequences, you cannot do anything to the aptitude for anybody else. Because you're only going to be feeding your inner child the same fucking junk. Your inner child still needs junk food. Even my junk food's different. I like vegan Cheez-Its. I never liked fucking regular jerky. I love vegan jerky because it's softer. Flavors is off the chain. Now my junk food is different. Because my junk food is mangoes, fruit, and salads and shit. That's my junk food. Whole different. My structure is different. As opposed to somebody else's junk food is different than mine. It's not for me to sit there and say, ugh, or look at it, because that means I still need to do the work if I'm being judgmental of it. The only thing that I can do is I see that I used to like that. Let me go find or create something that's to that same aptitude of that. I love fucking cheese dip. Love cheese dip. I love the Mexican restaurant cheese dip, the white cheese dip that's at the Mexican restaurant. But of course, it's like, I'm not going to eat that. What did I learn how to do? I went and sourced and found a Mexican cheese dip recipe and made my Mexican cheese dip. I was like, what else do you eat with cheese dip? Acknowledge the sequence, acknowledge the aspect, acknowledge the sequence, and now reconstruct this sequence to work over here, to work in your favor. That way you're not going back this back and forth process of fighting with yourself, trying to stay within the old aspects of yourself as compared to the new aspects of yourself. That's where you're going to keep getting stuck at, because on that side, that's fucking that's the necrosis, that's the cellular death that you're initiating. I can't go back into a space that I've killed everything out of it. I went and exterminated that whole space. Nothing in there lives. Everything in there is dead. When we think about the aspects of death, in the aspects of the everything over there is in limbo. So let me look at my life. What's in limbo? What's changed over the last couple of months with friends, family, and individuals that I've dealt with? The spirit of bringing them into your space to let you see that shit ain't changed, or to see where you're at. That's the physical aspect. The psychological aspect is going to trigger something in you. And then it's like, how are you going to approach it now? Are you approaching it based on judgment or discernment? Discernment is being able to take the aptitude to adapt to be like, okay, cool. I can accept that because they've accepted that. I can accept that. They've accepted that for themselves. I can accept them accepting that for themselves. Big power to them. I'm going to let them move on. Judgment becomes, I can't believe you still doing that. I can't believe you still with this. I can't believe this, and this, because you're still going from aptitude to judgment. Now you're stuck in that aptitude of judgment. Now you have to question, why the fuck am I judging it based on that? Why am I accepting this judgment? Remember, we go into ourselves. Why am I accepting this judgment to me? What does it mean? What is the usual program of me with this individual? What is the usual program of me with this person? What is our program? What was the original program or the original sequence of events that came together that created our space? What was it? What brought us into this space? What was the original? What was the nucleus? What was at the core of our relationship? How did it flourish? How did it last for so long? This helps you go into the aspect of, okay, what have I removed from my space that they haven't removed from theirs? That's your answer. That's your answer. That's going to help you be able to resequence and refashion your DNA to be your star player. That's the key. But you got to do this work. You got to do this work. You have to. It's a requirement to do the work that you need to do. It's a requirement. If you're not doing the work, prepare to see the same cycle. You're gonna get the energy. You're always gonna all these cycles of celestial events. You have a decision to make with the energy. You either can use it to advance or stay the same. I know what I'm doing with my energy. I'm honing my psychic abilities. I'm psyching all my. I'm working on all of my clairs, not at the same time, but I'm working on all my clairvoyances. My clairvoyance, ambience, touch, everything. I already accepted the fact that we don't touch anything. Our atoms naturally repel things. So the illusion of what I'm touching or the illusion of feeling, that's the thing that when you watch The Matrix, the first thing to realize that there is no spoon. That's what you're doing. You're shutting that part down. You're shutting down limitations. You're allowing the limitations to be shut down. That's what this fucking COVID shit was. It shut down your limitations. It shut down what most people, man, that's how I used to eat and how I used to live. That was your limitation. That relationship that didn't work, that was your limitation. The aptitude or the friendships that you were in, that was your limitation. Because I can guarantee you, once you start doing this cutting away when you start cutting these cords, you come to me for a cut the cord reading, we do that whole session. Once you start cutting away those cords, you're going to notice that, nigga, I always had the power. I always had the energy. I always had it. But now what do I do with it? That's where the overwhelming anxiety comes from. When you get overwhelmed, when you about to do something new, when you get overwhelmed, that Psycho Necrosis starts to try to kick in. Let's kill off these old cells. Too many cells, too many cells, too many cells. Let's kill it. Nope. Targeted cell death. Find out why you became anxious. Find out why the anxiousness arose. Find out why the overthinking and the overwhelm arose. It's because you're entering to a new sequence. You have to understand that new sequence of events. In order to use that new energy, you have to be able to program it. This is you programming that body. You have to program that sequence. Everything from how I wake up to when I wake up to why I wake up to the times I wake up. I've been seeing numbers all fucking day. All of that shit. Now it's not to the aspect. I used to look at the angel notes and be like, 555. I saw 555. What does it mean to me? Now when I see 555, 444, 1111, 1212, I notate the experience of what I was doing at that point in time. So if I see 444 when I'm walking down the hallway to go take a piss because I've been drank 19 bottles of fucking water, what was I doing? I was walking down the simple shit is I was walking down the hallway to take a piss. Nah, at 444, what is the meaning of 444? What's the original meaning and how can I expand and build upon it? I was walking down, I was eliminating waste. 555 for me. I saw 555 walking down the hallway when I was about to go pee. I was removing things from myself and aligning to more from my process. So now I write that down. When's the last time I saw 555? I saw 555 at 9:40 this rising when I was across the street buying my dragon's blood incense. What was I doing? I was acquiring things for my works. This is how you start resequencing. That's the sequencing process. Not just looking at it based on the surface of like, ooh, I got some crystals and some stones. That don't mean shit. Everything has to be reprogrammed once you grab it. Like this desert stone, desert rose, this stone right here. Yeah. That's for the aspects of tuning into the psychic abilities for myself. But it does me no good to be like, I'm gonna hold this and now I got psychic abilities. No, I have to program this into what psychic abilities I would like to work with. Clear quartz, clearing energy. What energy am I clearing? Got to program it. Petrified wood. This petrified ancestral stone. What ancestors am I going to be working with when I'm working with this stone? How am I programming that sequence? What music am I listening to? What food am I eating at that point in time? If I want to work with my aunt loves bananas and lemon pies. So if I'm holding this and I want to work with my aunt, lemon pies on the altar, I'm going to find a vegan version of a lemon pie for myself, and we're going to chow down and I'm going to work with that energy. Everything you're doing is reprogramming it. Ask the question why. Ask those questions to your higher self. Give yourself that narrative. Ask yourself those questions. Build that shit up. Name that sequence. Set that sequence. Use that sequence. Understand it. Get into it. Get dirty. Get honest with it. Get it out the mud, as most motherfuckers would say. And listen to the Kid Cudi album, because that album is fire. But yeah, I just want you to be the fucking best. I want you to be the best. I want you to exceed to going past the limitations of your mind, the limitations of your old mind. I want you to do that. That's because that's what I'm doing. That's what I desire for myself. So naturally, I desire that from others. But I'm not going to sit there in the aspect and wait for you to do it, because then I'm going to stifle my work or any example that I can give. That's your key. I'm not going to get stuck in a parallax waiting. But on the other end of that, I'm not going to suppress an urge. I'm going to take that energy or that urge and take it to the highest ability of my mindset. What you think is what you think. But what I know, what I feel, how I resonate, that's what you're working on. The application process. Ooh, that feels good. This is our all of that came out really quick. Woo, I rode that wave. Rode the wave. But I want you to be the best. I want you to be the best. I want you to grow. Need you to, but it's going to take that real work. It's going to take going into those shadows and dealing with the aspects of yourself. No longer looking outside of yourself as the aptitudes of the reason that I am the way that I am is because the world is the way that it is. No, the world is the way that it is because of the way that you are, the way that you are viewing it. That's the illusion. Program it to your own game. How are you digesting? How are you living? How are you growing? I'm feeling this shit just kicked in. In this pipe is a proprietary set of herbs that I just cultivated with sigil magic this rising. And it's the same one I put in my tea. It's the same one that's in my candles right now as I burn to the intent. And now I'm putting it literally into my body. That's programming and doing the work. No limits, no fear. This week's episode of the podcast was Parallax. Got very deep into those aspects. Stay tuned. We might have Papa Lucy Sunday service. If you don't follow me on Facebook, Rock Colonies is on Facebook. Yeah. If you're interested on building podcast episodes, doing a podcast episode, lectures, doing a build for a lecture, doing a build like of this sort, hit me up, setcallerneeds@gmail.com. That's my email address, or you can inbox me. We can do a build from there. Because all we do is Godico Alchemist is build. That's all we're doing is growing. Godico Alchemist, GodicoAlchemistLLC.com is a place for all my services. If you don't see a service and you think like, do you do this? Hit me in the inbox, send me a message. You can actually chat with me on the website. Send me a chat. Hit me up. That's all we're gonna do is build. We're all the different nexus points of that consciousness, that wave, to be able to have these conversations and build to this manner. Thank you for all of the support. Share the Cash App links up there. Show the support on that. Services, Occult Alchemy is the store. Tap into that. If you're interested in a reading, hit me up. The number's also 910-777-7708. Yeah. This new wave of energy got me moving more and more efficient. We just got the usual 3 hours done in 2 hours and 22 minutes and 50 seconds. Craziness. But I want you to be the best. I'm going to drink some more water. I have 2 readings that just hit my phone just now. Or 2 appointments for readings. I'll set those up. And I'm going to go from there. Be the best. Allow it to kill you. Because it's only going to make you stronger. I love you. We love us. Ashe.